Welcome to the Rosenfeld Review. I'm your host, Lou Rosenfeld. My guest today is Kara Kane. Kara, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And thank you especially for getting up in the middle of a holiday down under. Where are you, in Melbourne?
I'm in Sydney, Australia.
In Sydney, but normally in London, right?
Yes, I live in London.
Despite the accent. Well, if you don't know Kara, Kara is one of the curators, along with Ariel Kennan and Sarah Brooks, for the Civic Design community and the upcoming conference that Rosenfeld Media hosts, coming up November 16th through 18th. Kara is responsible for day one. We're going to get to that in just a moment. We're also going to talk a lot about community, which it's just like my favorite topic. And Kara, what are you doing now for the UK government digital service that's like your job now, right? Is being like the community person for the entire design organization, right?
Yes. So I used to be the community lead for user-centered design in government at the Government Digital Service. Currently on a break. Took a bit over 6 months off working in government to do some other projects, and then shortly returning next month as the head of profession for design at GDS.
So, okay, head of profession is a little bit more than just working on community.
Yes.
What's the head of profession role involve?
So head of profession will involve the community inside GDS, the community of designers. So there's about 50, but it's also looking at design culture and design capability. So are the people that are in the organization, do they have the skills and experience that they need to do their job? And then is the organization using design in the best way?
Well, that almost sounds like you are putting together community work with an area we've been very involved in, certainly the last few years, design operations, at least aspects of it. So, maybe we'll have you involved there as well next year.
Yeah,
Sounds like a great
definitely.
role, but you've been working now with UK government digital service for it's like 5-6 years before you
Yeah,
took your
5
break.
years. Mm-hmm.
And was that always doing community work?
So the first about 4 years that I worked there, I was working with a team called the User Centered Design Communities Team. It's a very long name. But what we did was communities of practice for all of UK government in design. So that was across design, user research, and accessibility. So helping people across different departments learn and share from each other and work together to have more consistency and decrease duplication across government services.
That's fantastic, and I'm so impressed that 5 years ago there was such a role. And I mean, I shouldn't be surprised because the UK's government digital service is basically like the forerunner and model in many respects for the rest of the world. I don't think it's hyperbole to say that. But how did like I mean, we're struggling. Certainly, it feels like at times in the U.S. To get our government agencies to really not just really to adopt good design practices. And here you're in the UK, you've got people developing communities of practice 5 years ago. How did that come to be? Where was like the impetus, and was it with an individual with great foresight, or just more of a grassroots thing that came from the people in the design and accessibility organizations?
Yeah, so it was really a bunch of people were doing work before I joined, trying out different things, and it really was very kind of grassroots and bottom up. So everything from running training, because especially when GDS was formed, a lot of the work was happening in exemplars, which was people from GDS being embedded in teams in other departments. Those people in those teams and departments realized that training and upskilling was needed. So they would kind of go out and create material and then start running that. Um, and then in 2013, there was a kind of mailing list set up um, for digital designers in government, for a way for people just to start talking. So it really was based on these kind of like organic needs of people working in design and government at the time. And then I was brought in by Lou Down, to try and add more structure and support and make it more of a thing, and to be the person and the team that was then really organizing and yeah, just adding more of what people needed, and being the people to do that work, because unless you have people hired to do the work, a lot of people are kind of doing it off the side of their desk, and it takes a lot of time. So it's really great that people have now realized that you need people in the actual role of community manager, community support, to support these communities and help them grow.
Oh, that's great. I mean, knowing a little bit about Lou's work doesn't surprise me that they wanted to bring you in to do this work. Um, but I also, you said that the designers were I think the term you used, exemplars. They were distributed throughout other parts of the government in the UK. So, did part of the impetus here come from those people feeling a little lonely, like being the only designer?
Yes, definitely. And that's still the case. So the kind of maturity of design across government is really varied. So there might be, uh, 5 years ago, there might have been teams of one, kind of designer in a team, a multidisciplinary team. That's still the case today. So the communities are really about helping everyone feel supported and having a place to go, to ask questions, to get advice, to see what patterns they should be using, to see what standards they have to meet. It really helps people feel less alone in the challenges that they have, because it is really, really hard work.
So, in your role, which is obviously changing, but you've been at this in one way or another for some years, what's the infrastructure that you've had to pull together? Maybe it's existing pieces that you combined or new things that you had to oversee the development of. What needs to be in place for these distributed designers to actually work together, collaborate, communicate, and function as a community?
Hmm. Yeah, I think um, something that I talk a lot about, which I think other people in communities of practice uh, don't think is as important. I really think that leadership, community leadership, is really needed. So in kind of central government in GDS, we had a head of design. So at the time when I was doing the community work, that was Lou Down. So Lou was a great kind of figurehead in a way for the community to bring people together and inspire them. At the same time, there's now more and more heads of design, and user research, and content design. So all of these heads of profession across government. So those people within their departments are leaders of their smaller communities of practice that then feed into this wider cross government um, community. And I think those people are so important to um, just kind of help guide people, but also give them the permission to join, um, and spend time doing community type activities. So from the center, in my previous role as the community lead, a lot of the things that we were doing was setting up events, setting up remote meetings, setting up training. We ran 11 courses at the height of our training, and just doing a lot of like linking up as well. I think that's something that I always see as being really important and maybe often forgotten about. It's just like the importance of linking things up and connecting people. So it was just a lot of the kind of like, what are the more administrative things that we can take away? What are the strategic things we can do? And then what are the kind of relationship building and collaboration building things that we can do?
So it sounds like, you said it started very grassroots, and you were just mentioning collaboration, maybe with other parts of of different agencies that designers find themselves in. So what I'm envisioning is like you've got sort of the bottom up, and then you've got the lateral, and then I guess maybe the next step or stage is, you know, reaching up toward stakeholders of various flavors.
Mhm.
And that's where the organization can really change rapidly when you convert those stakeholders. Are you at that point now where you're having an impact? Well, you know, I'm sure you're having an impact on the organization, but has it been primarily through the grassroots? Or are you starting to you know to recruit stakeholders into the work you're doing in community?
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things I found about the work, was kind of getting to that level of buy-in. I found that people at more senior levels often didn't understand the value of communities of practice. Um, Part of that is, I think, especially in UK government, the more senior you get, the more kind of generalist you have to be. So I think it's quite hard for people to think about specialist communities when that's not something that you may have been a part of for like the last 10 years of your career.
Hmm.
Um, so it's, yeah, very hard to kind of show the value, again, because I think whatever kind of output of value, whether it's monetary, um, is, it could be two, three, four times removed from the activity that you're doing. So putting on an event, it's really hard to show what's the value of that one event. So what I was trying to do is start to look at what is a framework of user-centered design maturity, and how could we then look at all of the things we're doing as a whole for communities of practice, so events and training and standards and guidance, and bringing people together. What does the sum of all of those things? How can we show the value of that? So the idea that we had, which we didn't get a lot of time to work on, was could we then start to have a maturity index of different government departments for user-centered design, to see where people are and whether the things that we're doing are influencing. And then that would be more of a thing to show senior stakeholders, about the value and why they should fund them and why they should support them.
Does such an index um, make certain people very nervous?
Um, I think we always talked about it as, not kind of sharing publicly those kind of results and using it more as an internal tool. So I think the value in that kind of UCD maturity framework is for the conversations that can happen
Hmm.
while you're kind of going through the exercise of looking at where you sit, whether for your team and your organization. Um, and then using that internally to say, like, okay, this is where we sit. Go to your senior stakeholder and show them these are the areas where we need more support, or we need
Hmm.
more buy-in, or more people with skills and experience to then deliver on the outcomes that they're asking for.
So it seems like that's a huge amount of value for stakeholders. They can actually, in a way, you're helping them audit team performance based on outcomes. But are they still saying to you, well, I want to know metrics for the investment we make collectively in community development, besides the fact that you're giving us maybe an index and helping us maybe centralize some procedures, standardize some procedures? Are there actual metrics for communities of practice?
Yeah, I think the way that at least in GDS things are going is to talk about professions. So in my new role as head of profession, which involves community, that involves um, things around kind of jobs frameworks and um, progression and career paths, and recruitment. So it's about kind of getting these other bits, um, that an organization values and needs, and kind of joining that up with the community work. And I mean, for GDS, that's how these roles have been funded. So
Hmm.
I can share that my kind of UCD communities team and that work that was shut down um, in kind of early pandemic 2020. So that team was cut, and we realized we hadn't done enough work to show the internal kind of organization the value of that thing. All of our work was very outward facing. Um, so I think it's a really good sign that my role has been this new role that I'm going into has been created. But it's interesting to look at the framing of it with that kind of profession lens.
I think it's great. Again, I think it's really enlightened and makes one feel really hopeful. Um, One more question about communities before we move on to talking about the conference. Um, what about community in the context of people working in civic design, people specifically working in or with the public sector who are doing some form of user experience design or research? Is it different? Is it, is there, do you sense that like there's a cultural difference of people who are working in the sector compared to, let's say, private sector?
I think there's potentially more appetite to kind of collaborate and learn from each other. Um, Especially, I think if you look at government services across, whether it's across states or in the UK, across uh, councils, you have a lot of the same services that you're delivering. So there's a lot of value for people working, you know, on the same thing in one state versus another state to say, hey, how are you doing this thing? And I've had this challenge. Have you had this too? What approaches are you taking? How are you finding people to recruit? There's so much value in having those conversations rather than trying to figure it all out on your own. So um, I do see a lot of people kind of coming together. I think the challenges are finding the people with like the specific things that you're trying to also work on because it's such a wide range of people. Um, so especially when you're going, cross state or internationally, um, there's so many different variations of what people are working on. So it's
Hmm.
you just have to find the commonalities, and maybe that takes a bit more work or more facilitation and community management to help people find those common spaces.
It's interesting in the community that you help us host, the civic design community that's hosted by Rosenfeld Media. That there's times I feel like in this context, it's actually harder to get people to share what they're working on compared to the private sector. Like permissions from stakeholders is a really
Mm-hmm.
dicey thing where, it's interesting, like theoretically, at least in the States, you could FOIA pretty much anything, right? You would think that, the private sector would be a bit more touchy because they're, concerned about competitors and so forth. But I don't know if that's a, a U.S. domestic issue or in terms of culture in the public sector, or do you see that in the UK as well?
I think people need to know who the audience is and able to feel comfortable to share. So a lot of the kind of cross government events that I used to run, a lot of times people would need to kind of spend time getting that okay from stakeholders to share work, but they were always keen to find ways of sharing it. So
Hmm.
even if something part of it they couldn't share, they would find a way to still tell the story. Um, but as well, I think trying to find ways that you can talk about your experiences, which may not be um, sharing the things that you can't share. So sharing kind of like the insights of what you learned trying to do that approach. I think there's ways to kind of abstract um, information that you can share, and I think that takes a lot of time. And what I've found a lot in my work, because a lot of the stuff that I and my team did was a lot of kind of storytelling and helping people share case studies or helping people write blog posts. I've done a lot of editing, helping people put together presentations for meetups. I found that people really needed a lot of help through that process to kind of show like what's the story here, what should I be, what what's the narrative arc, and I think that's a place where I think designers in general need more kind of upskilling, but also maybe they just need someone that they can go to in the organization that is a writer or a storyteller that can help them with that.
Well, that's a great segue to the next part of our conversation, which is talking about the narrative arc that you're helping develop at the Civic Design Conference. We're going to do that right after the break. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Rosenfeld Review. Hey, it's Lou. Surprise, surprise. And I'm here to let you know that the next Rosenfeld media book is coming out on November 15th, but you can buy it right now. You can pre-order it at over 15% off. What's the book? Deliberate Intervention Using Policy and Design to Blunt the Harms of New Technology. Written by Alex Schmidt, a person who's got both great writing credentials and is a designer now working in the public sector at the Federal Reserve Bank right here in New York City. It's a book on an intersection that's really important. Designers really have to understand policy as a constraint, sometimes a good constraint, but always a challenging constraint, and what we can do with that constraint, whether it's understanding policy well and how it gets created, understanding tight policy constraints, looser ones, understanding how we can even work our way upstream to become part of the process of designing policies, and all together with the goal of reducing the harms that technologies are unleashing on the world. So I hope you'll have a look. Policy, design, fascinating intersection, excellent writer Alex Schmidt, and the book, Deliberate Intervention Using Policy and Design to Blunt the Harms of New Technology. It's a Two Waves book, a Rosenfeld Media imprint, and you can get it, pre-order it now for 15% off at rosenfeldmedia.com. Welcome back to the Rosenfeld Review. Kara Kane and I have been talking about community in the civic design context. Now we're going to talk about content, namely the part of the conference that Kara is putting together. This is the Civic Design Conference that we're hosting November 16th through 18th. It's going to be virtual, and Kara is one of three curators, along with Ariel Kennan and Sarah Brooks, that have been designing this program, researching it first, then designing it, spending months on this, and thank you for that, and now working for a couple months preparing speakers. So, Kara, you've been working with a number of speakers to help take their ideas and help them collaborate with each other, with you, the speaker coach, and iterate on those ideas so that you have a really strong narrative arc that ties together the day of talks that they'll be giving and that you're helping them put together. Your theme, and your speaker's theme, is the decade cycle, 10 years back, 10 years forward. I hope we can get into this a bit. And I was actually thinking about your theme earlier today. I get the sense that having a bit more historical context and maybe more importantly, seeing the long game is maybe more important for researchers and designers working in the public sector than elsewhere. It just seems like the cycle is longer, and maybe you have to develop muscles that'll help you stay in that game for a longer period of time. Is that an aspect of what your speakers are going to be covering, or am I totally off base?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting with this theme, and yeah, as you rightly mentioned, it's something that I talk a lot about to designers, which is you really have to be there, for the long haul, especially in civic design and government, because an idea that comes up that sounds amazing that gets shelved that might come up again in 5 years' time. And if you had been the person working on that, um, whether doing research or design and prototyping, it's so exciting when those things come back and you can start to then uh, form them more and hopefully see them out in the world. So it does take um, a lot of resilience
Hmm.
to do this type of work. And I think we'll definitely see that through our talks. So we have a talk by Stephanie Kaiser from the German federal government, which is really about that beginning stage of starting a new digital organization, but learning from all of the other digital government organizations that have been around for the past 10 years. But then we also have kind of journeys through 50 years of civic design.
Hmm.
So there's so much, it's not just the last decade, it's multiple decades of this work and looking at, wider than just kind of what we may see today as civic design, looking wider into kind of architecture and things that have the ways that people were working and how that's kind of led to where we are now with digital government. So lots of kind of interesting stories and narrative arcs from Sha Huang talking about the first 50 years of civic design. But then I'm also really excited about George A's talk, The Quiet Little Voice When Design and Ethics Collide,
Hmm.
which is really about looking at where we are right now in civic design, the things that we are responsible for as designers, the hard um, decisions that we're making and the way that those decisions affect citizens and users and people and the harm that we can cause um, because of those decisions and really looking at going forward how can we be more considered and ethical in our approaches. So there's so much in this day.
There really is, and I know it's a work in progress, and I think maybe that's the message of the day about a long term work in progress in terms of the evolution of civic design. But if you had to put sort of the moment we're in that broader context, how would you describe where civic design is today?
Oh my gosh.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
That's a big question. Um, I just think it's growing at a really fast pace. I think it's been really exciting for me as an American living abroad to see how much, uh, how much of a role design has been having in U.S. government. It's exciting to see this German federal government team kind of pop up and grow in the past year, um, and to have lots of conversations internationally with teams across the world also doing this type of work. And I think a lot of the work from this community and the support that it gives people, I think, is really helping drive that and giving people um, the confidence to do this work or the confidence to even um, like say this work needs to happen and being the person in an organization in a place where they're saying we need this. I feel confident because I have people that I can go to for support and making it happen. So I think it's really exciting time, and I'm always telling people in the private sector that are a bit bored or jaded in their job, I'm like, go
Come
to
on
civic
in.
design or come into government. It's really exciting.
Well, I you sound very optimistic, and I don't want us to like do some kind of detailed SWOT analysis here. It's just a podcast, for God's sake. But are there any concerns you have at this moment in time for the growth of civic design in the public sector?
I mean, I think we spoke about this a bit with the kind of this decade theme for the conference. Like there's a political shift or a priority change can happen at any time, which can hinder this work or completely stop it. So I think it's always being aware of the kind of context of your work, and where you sit, especially if you're in a kind of really politically charged part of civic design, and kind of really having your eyes open to what's happening around you, so that if something does happen, like you're being asked to move teams, or you no longer, have a job doing what you want to be doing, that it's not a complete shock to the system. Because again, like, you need a lot of resilience to do this type of work, and this work is really important. But you kind of have to just see what's happening around you, and potentially, make those shifts for yourself before something might happen. So what I love about civic design is that there's so many different spaces where you can do this work, whether it's academia, whether it's a nonprofit, or whether you're working in government at any level. So yeah.
It's interesting you're talking about resilience, and I almost thought you were going to start talking about resistance. But that's another conversation, which maybe at some point we'll get into. Not today. But I would like to wrap up with our Rosenfeld review tradition. Did you bring us some gifts?
I did. So yeah, I want to share that people should go and check out all of the UK government blogs. So I talked a lot about kind of the writing and sharing that people in communities do. That happens a lot in the open. So anyone in the public can go to government blogs. So there's a design and government blog, a user research government blog, accessibility in government, and services in government. So a lot of that is work from across government, and GDS helps publish that content.
Well, I'm glad you've been a part of all the great stuff GDS has been doing. It's been inspirational, as well as really useful. And I've seen a lot of people from GDS over the years go out and bring the good word to other countries, around the Commonwealth at least. So it's been great to see. Thank you for also bringing it to the Rosenfeld civic design community. I'm really looking forward to your theme and your speakers. They're going to really kick some butt on day one of civic design. Again, folks, it is November 16th through 18th. It is virtual. We've actually, if you're in the public sector, really lowered the prices quite a bit to make more sense for people working in that setting. And we've got great people making it happen, including our guest today, Kara Kane from the UK GDS. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's Lou. Thank you for listening to the latest Rosenfeld Review podcast. I really appreciate it. I would love to hear from you. And if you want to pop me an email, lou@rosenfeldmedia.com, tell me what you thought. Better yet, leave me the hell alone and post a review on your favorite podcast platform. Please feed the algorithm. It really does make a difference. We want to get the word out. If you like the word, give us a hand. And while I'm asking you for favors, don't forget, buy books. Support your favorite local independent publisher. We happen to be one, rosenfeldmedia.com. All those great UX books are there. So, thanks again.